Hello and welcome to Lancast. I'm your host, Danny Martin, and my co-host, Josh Gerber, is here. And
hello, everyone. What's going on?
It's been like a month since we've done this. What do you want to talk about first, Josh?
Let's talk about our trip.
Yeah.
Let's talk about our trip to DC.
Yeah, we went to the Rescue the Republic rally on September 29th in DC, and it was so amazing. I wish everyone could have been there. I mean, you know, the last time I'd been to DC for a march, any kind of rally that magnitude was in the early 2000s when I was there for the protests of the Iraq War. And I mean, that was a much larger scale. There were like hundreds of thousands of people there. And this is an event, I mean, in my mind, today is just as important. You know, we didn't have as many people, but there was a pretty good turnout. I mean, several thousand. And some of the people speaking there are critical people in the electoral landscape right now. I mean, well, Trump was the only one who wasn't there, who I wish he was there. But the people in Trump's camp, RFK Jr., Tulsi, Elon Musk wasn't there. But a lot of other people who support him and who support free speech were there. And it was just an amazing rally. What do you think, Josh?
Oh yeah, it was almost like going to church. I don't like to equate, you know, God and politics too much, but you know, being on the front lines of politics, and you know, the electorate isn't as informed as it should be. So people like you, people like me, like the estimated 5,000 that were there, are the front lines of citizens who care about this country so deeply that they will, you know, go to a rally for 7 hours and listen to people basically preach, you know, and we're the choir. And people were hoping for more people to show up. But I think the amount of people who were there and the people that stayed there for the whole time, it was kind of like a good old fashioned like Southern Baptist revival, where the crowd wasn't there, but the people who were there needed to hear what they were saying. They needed to hear that the populace that is really into politics, the citizenry that's really into politics, such as yourself and I, you know, we needed that like uplifting, you know.
Yeah, it's almost like a validation. And I mean, part of these events, or they help you articulate like what we're actually fighting for, you know. And I really like the way it was put here with the 8 pillars. I didn't mean to cut you off if you were.
No, you're good.
Thought, no. Yeah, so the 8 pillars from the website. The website is jointheresistance.org for the Rescue of the Republic. And now I don't know if all 8 of those were discussed. I mean, they were covered in some form, but to me, the most important ones were: number 1, war is always the last resort versus the military-industrial complex. Second was sanctify or recodify informed consent versus the medical-industrial complex. The third was banish state media control, surveillance, and propaganda versus the censorship industrial complex. I think free speech, to me, is the most important issue of all of them, because it's kind of on the front lines of any of those individual issues. Like, for example, you know, you can't really fight the war machine if the war machine is censoring, you know, is suppressing free speech, because then how do you get the truth out about why these wars are actually being fought? You know what I mean? Right. And it's the same thing we saw. I mean, we talked about it last time a little bit with COVID. There was a lot of censorship going on. So it was kind of the medical industrial complex was kind of in control of us through their suppression of free speech.
Right. So, and they're not it's not just the censorship when it comes to speech. The media is doing this thing when it comes to FEMA and the funds that we've sent to Israel and Ukraine. They're basically saying that, all these conservatives are complaining about the money on the wars, and they're saying that they're switching money from FEMA to the wars. Whether that's true or isn't the point. The point that people are making, and not even just conservatives, just regular Americans who are being devastated right now, is like, who do you care about the most? Do you care about the military-industrial complex, or do you care about the people who pay for that military-industrial complex? You know,
Right.
I think what's been I think what Kamala has said is that, you know, each person will get $750, which is a lot,
Right.
which is the exact same amount that the citizens in Hawaii got when they had the fire a year ago,
Right.
and they lost everything, and they took their land. By the way, they took their land. So they're giving each citizen $750 for loot, and they've lost everything. And that's two examples where the citizens of the United States get $750. And then meanwhile, I have the numbers. We've sent $175 billion to Ukraine. We've sent $18 billion to Israel. And we're sending each citizen who's been affected by these hurricanes and the wildfire a year ago $750 after them losing everything. So, like, where's the priority? And then back to censorship, they're basically, whether people are getting their facts right or not about the FEMA funds isn't even all that important. The fact is that we're spending a crazy amount of money on other people's wars, on other people's defense, on other people's safety, rather than our own citizens.
Exactly. And that reminds me, I went to an amazing appearance of Tucker Carlson in Reading a couple of weeks ago, and that was one of his main talking points, was about, you know, Josh Shapiro had earlier in the week hosted Zelensky, and he was signing bombs, and you know, he was going off on how messed up that it's disgusting and kind of psychotic. Like, you know, you can, even no matter where you stand on the war, like, you know, you can support Ukraine, you can support Russia, or, you know, support neither, whatever, but why would you sign bombs? Like, those things kill people. Like, I mean, war is a nasty business, and Josh Shapiro and whoever else was there, Bob Casey, they obviously don't take it seriously, because, you know, it's just a sport to them. They want their side to win. So
exactly.
Yeah, let's sign the bombs. Yeah, we're on Team Ukraine.
Well,
and
it's
disgusting.
Let's also not forget, and a lot of people don't even think about this when it comes to war. Typically, war is fought by young men who don't want to be there, like, against other young men who don't want to be there, on the behalf of the elite of each country, who will never have to fight. And even if those bombs, miss their target and it's a populated area, you're hitting civilians, people who aren't even in military uniform or have guns, or tanks or whatever. So when you're signing a bomb, you have no idea where that bomb's gonna hit. It could hit an apartment complex. It could hit a defensive position against your quote unquote enemy. Either way, conscripted armies are armies of force. You're basically conscripted and you're forced to fight. America is kind of unique, where our fighting force is basically all volunteer. Russia, that's not the case. In Ukraine, they're literally ripping 50-year-old men out of their homes and training them and sending them in the fight. And so is Russia. But Ukraine has lost 2 generations. Their average age of a male fighter is 41, I think, is their average age. And America's, I think, is in the mid-20s. So they've lost 2 generations of men in Ukraine. At the cost of this war. So Shapiro signing those bombs, he's just glorifying what I see is just elites murdering people.
Yeah, exactly.
By force. It's horrible.
And it's so infuriating. See, this is one thing that, you know, you can make criticism of Trump. I mean, there's plenty of things to criticize him on, but he's gotten the rhetoric right on this. Like, they try to press him at these debates about do you think it's in our best interest that Ukraine wins the war? And no, he gives a good answer. Like, look, it's not about winning. Like, it's in our best interest to end the war. Like, to end the dying and the killing. And that's the right answer, not like, because when he answers that, then all the talking heads are like, oh, he wants to acquiesce to Putin's demands, and it's just so primitive and simplistic. And I think it's kind of a good segue to the letter I wrote, if we want to segue into that. But did you have any other thoughts about that? Yeah,
I think if I'm going to say anything else about the rally and about in general, what we witnessed in DC, is that I don't think we're necessarily alone on our thoughts of Ukraine, but I definitely think that there's work to do in the liberty movement and the conservative movement and the center when it comes to just the atrocities that Israel is doing. And Israel is our friend. They've always been our friend. We created them. So we're kind of married to them. But I think it's also a high time that we think critically about what America's involvement in the Israeli government's actions against very bad people, terrorists, the three H's, Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis. The Rescue of the Republic rally, all the speeches are available online. They're all on YouTube, I believe. And I would encourage anyone to go on there and listen to them. And I would challenge you to try to hear something that you don't agree on, especially when it comes to war.
Exactly. 100%.
We have spent I think it was $20 trillion on war. We're $35 trillion in debt now. But for some reason, our government continues to send billions and billions of dollars to other countries for their defense. And while we do have starving children, we do have homeless people, we have homeless veterans, we have 21 veterans who blow their brains out every day because of those wars that we were involved in. And I think critical thinkers like conservatives, like this new unity that has been found with RFK, Tulsi, and Trump and Elon. I think there's a lot of critical thinkers in there. And I think especially the evangelical conservative Republicans, many of them who are just that here in Lancaster County, I think we need to really think about and pray about what America's job truly is in the world. And when I say America, I mean our government. Our government's job is pretty specific according to our Constitution, and that's to defend our borders, ensure that our rights are being upheld by our government and by our leaders, and they're supposed to leave us alone. And we have strayed so far away from that. So I mean, that's just a little caveat. I just wanted to maybe go just a little bit deeper into the war.
And we can come back to the rally. I did want to mention, just to piggyback off that, if you go to YouTube, go to Bret Weinstein's channel, and all the speeches are on his channel. And there's some great speakers, like we mentioned, some of them, Colonel Douglas McGregor, Jordan Peterson, Bret Weinstein, Matt Taibbi.
Russell Brand,
yep. He's a good one. Jimmy Dore, he came on later and spoke about stuff related to war. I'm a little hoarse already. Yeah, it was big.
That was big. That was really big. I mean, the only other talk, liberal, I guess you'd say left. He's really left, right?
Yeah, Jimmy Dore. Exactly.
So, I mean, to me, there's not much difference between Jimmy Dore and Cenk Uygur from the Young Turks. And for Jimmy Dore to kind of do what RFK did and just it's incredible. They're the phrase "suck it up," right?
Yeah.
They're literally sucking it up. They're putting their personal feelings about Trump, their personal the hate that RFK must be getting, and the hate that Jimmy Dore is probably getting just for doing what he did. It's incredible, and I think if there is any Democrats who are listening right now, and I hope there are, I think you should realize just the sacrifice that RFK has taken, the sacrifice that Tulsi Gabbard has taken to do this.
Yeah.
Tulsi was quote unquote the crowned, woman of the Democrat Party. She was their darling for like about a year or two. And then she went against Hillary Clinton, and they said, "You're done." And then sure enough, she was done because she hates war that much.
Yep.
For you Democrats out there, hopefully you're listening, in Lancaster County and anywhere else. Just consider the mental tax that RFK is experiencing with his family, the mental tax that his wife, who is in Hollywood, is surely taking right now. They're sacrificing a lot to support someone they probably don't agree with 100%, and this unity movement is rolling along, and I want as many people to jump on that rolling train as we can.
Absolutely. Yeah. And two things. Yeah. Tulsi was amazing. I remember watching the 2020 Democratic primaries, and she was the only one who made any sense on foreign policy. Like the rest of them were kind of hawkish on Syria, and I remember her talking about Syria and refuting that Mayor Pete dude who doesn't seem to know anything about foreign policy other than what the neocons tell him. But and she destroyed Kamala Harris before Kamala Harris became VP. She pretty much destroyed her campaign. It's ironic.
So badly.
Yeah.
She destroyed it so badly that she didn't get a single delegate vote. She never made it to Iowa.
Isn't it crazy?
So not a single human, exactly. Not a single person has voted for her, and it's absolutely insane that the Party of Democracy is letting this happen.
Yeah.
But also, I think we should throw out this life raft to Democrat voters. I think many of them are probably thinking that, but they can't say that. I'm sure there's a good amount of Democrats who would have rather have a quick primary than what just happened a few months ago with Harris just being crowned the nominee. I guarantee you Kamala was not their first pick. But that's what they were given.
Yeah. She was nobody's first pick, let's be honest. I did want to correct you on one thing you mentioned earlier about Cenk Uygur. Like, Jimmy Dore is way more based than Cenk Uygur. So I don't Yeah. I don't want Jimmy Dore to listen to this and think we're comparing him with Cenk. But anyway.
Yeah. To be fair, I've heard Cenk when he's calm a whole lot more than I've heard him when he's angry. So I agree with you. When Cenk is calm, he can actually have a discussion and he's all right. But then when he gets like worked up like Alex Jones, he's not comparable to Jimmy Dore. But when he's calm, I could kind of like compare him to Jimmy Dore. But I probably haven't. You're probably right. I probably haven't watched enough of Jimmy and Cenk to really make that comparison.
Yeah, I listen to a lot of Jimmy Dore. He's great. He's like the one guy in the left I would listen to regularly. I listen to him almost as much as Dave Smith.
Dave Smith is the man.
He's the man, yeah. So, there's a number of things we can segue into. I mentioned the letter I wrote that LNP, but we could also talk about Kamala's, we were just talking about her pretty much not able to answer questions. So I don't know, which direction what do we want to talk about next?
Yeah, whatever flows best.
She's doing more interviews. Yeah, I mean, I've only listened to Dave Smith's analysis of the interviews, and he plays little clips, and I'm like thinking, could it really be this bad? Like, there was a clip of her on Colbert and one on 60 Minutes, and I guess the journalists are starting to ask real questions. They're not giving her softballs like I guess at the debates, which I couldn't stomach watching those either. Anyway,
we found out. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think that the media, is propping her up and siding with her, but I do wonder when she does have some of these interviews and they're actually ask her questions. Like, I wonder why she's not more prepared. Because she still talks in word salads and not giving any real answers. Like for example, the one about I can't remember who asked her this, but what would separate you from Biden's policies or something to that effect? And she just answered, well, first off, I'm not Joe Biden, but more importantly, I'm not Donald Trump. And that was the basis of her whole answer. I'm like, you didn't answer the question, but he
said that multiple times.
Yeah.
He in 60 Minutes, he repeated his questions several times. She did answer one question pretty quickly and truthfully. She owns a Glock, guys. She's a Glock girl. So
that's right.
He asked her what kind of gun she had. She's like, I got a Glock. And I was like, okay, all right, German made, all right, figures. But yeah, she answered that pretty quick, and that was good. But her answers just shows just how much of an empty suit she is.
An empty suit, yes.
It's just absolutely incredible, and I just don't know what she stands for. I mean, even her commercials, she says Trump's going to do a tariff or basically a sales tax that'll cost $4,000 per family, and that says. But then I'm like, lady, your guys' inflationary spending and your practices have caused way more than $4,000 a year of extra expense. At least if that's true, if that's true, which I don't know if it is. At least if it's $4,000 more we're paying and quote unquote sales tax, which is basically a tariff. He said he's going to use tariffs. At least he'll be bringing manufacturing jobs back. At least he'll be bringing goods to be built back in America back, because if they don't succumb to those tariffs, stuff's going to have to be made here cheaper. So tariffs have a use. I'm not particularly a fan of tariffs, but I'd rather pay $4,000 more a year and have more things made here in America than say her idea of an opportunity economy where you're just throwing incentives out left and right, hoping something sticks.
Yeah, and right, and going back to, you mentioned how she doesn't stand for anything. I seem to remember she was asked a couple times, you've reversed stances on a couple things like fracking and and they're trying to
healthcare.
That's right, Medicare for all. That was it, right? And they're trying to give her a chance to explain herself, and she really just talks around it. She's like, "Well, my values haven't changed, and what's important is that we elect the president with character." Yeah, she just talks around it and gives these empty platitudes and doesn't really explain why she. I mean, look, you can say you evolved. Well, I changed my mind. This is not a good idea because this, but she has no substance to explain her answers that way, because she doesn't really have any position. She's going where the political winds, or more specifically where the machine tells her to go.
Right. And her and another commercial. I keep getting these commercials. They must think I'm gonna vote for her or something. But her another one of her commercials is we won't raise taxes on any family that makes more than $400,000 a year. I'm like, that is the exact same ad that Biden used in 2020. That's the same exact, like that's the exact same thing he said over and over and over again. And so like she's basically running the same campaign, and her proposals are the same proposals but a few tweaks as Biden did, because Biden was an empty suit and she is an empty suit. And it's Trump versus the machine. It's Trump versus all those complexes that the 10 pillars had for rescue of the public. Yep. It's Trump versus all of those.
Yes.
And you can love him, you can hate him, you can vote for the guy and think he is despicable, you know. Right. But what I've been saying to people who are on the fence, and I'm just like, look, he is who he is, and he hasn't changed. Okay, but if you don't vote for him, you're voting for an empty suit who, and the person whoever fills the empty suit isn't important. It's the suit. Right. And the suit doesn't care about you. All they care about is profit off of war, off of our health or lack thereof, off of our children's health, off of our children's education, and they want to profit off of our labor. And that's what we need to understand. The suit is the enemy. It's not the person in the suit for the Democrat Party, for the machine. It's what that suit represents, and that is the pillaging of our money, of our labor, the pillaging of our health, the pillaging of our children's health, and it's got to stop. And if I had, I mean, I've had a love-hate relationship with Trump, much like you, Danny, and probably much with other like critical thinkers in the Republican Party and the Independent Party, and it's like, what do you want? I mean, Trump is what he is right now. The Republican Party drastically let everyone know he's our guy. You know, so we're gonna have to roll with him whether we like it or not. But you can't just look at the policies, okay? Yes. Look at the team he has assembled around him. Like, what would you think if in 2000 and in 2004 George Bush surrounded himself with oh geez, man, I can hardly even think of any Democrats back then because I was so young. But like, imagine like the most moderate Democrats that were critical thinkers back then. What would people think if Bush had them in his cabinet? That, you know, the anti-war people in his cabinet, they would be like, "Wow, this is amazing." You know. Yep. All of Trump's faults, and he's still got people around him, such as Elon Musk, Tulsi Gabbard, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and a host of other Democrats who are like, and celebrities who are like, I just can't. I can't vote against him because our country is being destroyed. Exactly. Okay, and that's a good segue for me to read my letter. Yeah, so I wrote this letter on, a little over a month ago, and it was published on September 29th, actually the morning of the rally. And I was pleased that LNP published it, only editing out minimally one thing, which I'll come back to after I read it. So this letter is called Voting for Trump and Against the Machine. And here's what I wrote. This election isn't about Donald Trump versus Vice President Kamala Harris. It's about the people versus the machine. And right now, the Democratic Party is the embodiment of the machine. Consider that the Democrats colluded with media to cover up their leader's cognitive decline, bypassed having a real presidential primary, and then let party elites select a new candidate. Consider that they have spent the past 8 years, including the current presidential campaign, pushing hoaxes about Trump, as well as the Project 2025 bogeyman. Consider that they have bullied and used lawfare against Trump and other opponents, such as Robert F. Kennedy Jr., to try to keep them off the ballot. Are the Democrats that afraid of actual democracy? I urge every American to look up Kennedy's recent "there's been an inversion" statement. I could go on about free speech, media, assassination attempts,
and the unelected bureaucracy. But none of this alone is why I am voting for Trump this election. I simply prefer his actual positions over those found in Harris's until recently non-existent platform. But in the interest of brevity, if I had to pick one issue, I would say it's avoidance of World War III. One candidate is promising indefinite funding of death and destruction until Ukraine wins, whatever that means, while the other is promising to negotiate a truce by day one. Will Americans believe the war machine, the legacy media, and the establishment, or the guy who is clearly opposed by that establishment? Signed, Daniel Martin, Manheim Township. So,
Well done.
Thank you. I mean, I thought it was on point, and
It was very good.
I mean, it's too bad. If I had more room to talk about things, I would mention other issues. He's better on, obviously, immigration, having a strong border. He doesn't want to suppress free speech the way the Democrats do. I mean, that's a big one. Like I said, I think it's the most important issue. But yeah, it's interesting to me that the one thing they took out of here is when I was talking about the Project 2025 bogeyman, I made a reference to this website, AmericanDebunk.com, and I encourage if you're listening, go check that out. It's a great website, just talking about some of the many hoaxes about Trump, like the going back to like Charlottesville, like find people on both sides totally taken out of context, and the drinking bleach thing, and the
that was clearly a joke.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many other things on there, and it explains it. But Project 25 is one of them, and it just lays out, well, look, this isn't even his policy. He's said that many times, and here's his actual policy. It's I think it's called
it's Agenda 47.
Agenda 47. That's it. Yeah, and people, it's so funny. You see in all these commercials, like President Trump's going to be a dictator on day one. He said so, and Project 2025 is going to strip away all your freedoms, and it's just so ridiculous. Like,
right. There was one that was talking about destroying the environment, and I was like, we're buying oil. We're buying the filthiest oil from the Middle East. Like, it's filthy. It's not nearly as pure and clean as the oil that we can be drilling offshore in the Gulf or on American soil. Like, we are. Alaska, we are literally the cleanest extractors of natural gas, oil, and coal in the world. Okay, if we have to use fossil fuels, it's better it's done here in America than anywhere else. Yep. We're the cleanest at it. We literally, when it comes to countries that export natural gas, coal, and oil, we do it the cleanest. So it's like, if you really care about the environment, the stuff's going to be drilled either way. Wouldn't you want the country that does it the cleanest to do it the most?
Yep. Yeah.
It's so obvious.
And that's I feel like we should dedicate a whole episode to the whole energy debate. I mean, that's a big one. Like, I mean, yeah, I just mentioned Alaska, the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. You have on one side you have some conservationists who don't think we should be drilling there, but why not ask Alaskans? I saw a statistic that something like 75% of Alaskans support drilling, and it's only going to have a minimal impact on wildlife. So it just seems like a trade-off that's worth it if you consider that energy is what brings people out of poverty. But again, that's another can of worms.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and when it comes to pipelines and stuff like that, I'd rather be extracting oil and contributing a good to the world than trying to capture carbon and bury it in farmland in Iowa, like they're trying to do right now to farmers all across Iowa to get that carbon pipeline all the way to, I think it's South Dakota. So I mean, it doesn't even make sense. Project 2025 and them trying to say that that's what Trump wants to do. Trump has come out to be a moderate on abortion. And that's something that evangelical Christians are pretty upset about.
Yeah,
actually,
he said there won't be a
Project 2025. Right. And Project 2025 is like you'll never be able to abort your child again, and he'll do a federal ban, and he's against IVF, and I'm like, he is not against IVF. He's absolutely for IVF, and we don't need to like get into it. Like on this episode, at least with abortion, IVF, it's just there's so many things in Project 2025 that they say that Trump's for, and he's like the polar opposite. And he said he was a polar opposite of that before Project 2025 was even quote unquote debuted. So it's just it's just a stupid boogeyman that they're using against us, just like how Agenda 2030 was a boogeyman for Republicans in 2020. If you don't remember, the Agenda 2030 video came out by the World Economic Forum, and it had Republicans and a terrified tissy fit that if Biden won, we'd own nothing and be happy. And that hasn't happened yet. They're trying, but it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember that being on the scale that the Project 2025.
It's not on the scale. It's not on the scale,
Yeah.
but that's because the Democrat Party is much better at messaging and staying on point than the Republican Party could ever dream.
Well, and also, I mean, they own most of media too.
Right.
But no, it's interesting. I mean, circling back to the FEMA thing, like I remember, like even Fox was upset at the Bush administration back when Hurricane Katrina hit, and they weren't doing a good job with FEMA and the response. So it's totally different now. I feel like the media, well, they're obviously covering for the current administration. I don't know of any criticism going on really. They're just they're just
who even criticize? They don't even know who's in charge. Like they don't even know who's in charge. We have no idea. We have no idea. I mean, the last time I saw Biden on TV, he was putting on a Trump hat. Did you see that?
I don't know if he was joking. Well, his defense.
He put it on either way.
Sense of humor.
Yeah, I mean, but he's never had that kind of sense of humor before. Like, was he confused? Did he understand what the hat was? Like what was that?
No,
what was that? That was crazy.
Right. But this reminds me, there was a good tweet from Jeffrey Tucker. I actually printed this out on September 10th. And Jeffrey Tucker, for those who don't know, he's the head of the Brownstone Institute, which is a fantastic publication. Lots of libertarian ideas. But anyway, his tweet was, "There's no U.S. president right now, not a real one. The unelected permanent class rules all things." Honest question, Is this terrible and scary? Or is it better because it is just more truthful and transparent about how things really work and have long worked? Also, is the message here that it doesn't really matter if Kamala is president because he/she is a fiction anyway, so might as well just support a symbol. I thought that was a pretty hard-hitting tweet.
That's pretty hard-hitting, yeah. And it goes back to when I was saying, you have a choice between a very loud, sometimes charismatic guy and an empty suit.
Right.
It's kind of like what I was saying earlier. So,
well, actually, Dave Smith made that point in his last podcast episode. Like, Trump, whether you like him, or whether you love him or hate him, like, he's real. Like, what he's about. You've seen 4 years of him at the helm, and he actually wants to be a president, whether you like his policies or not. With Kamala, she's not even real. Like, she's an empty suit. Like, I mean, come on. Like, deep down inside, if you're listening to this, whether you're going to vote for her or not because, you hate Trump or whatever, I mean, come on, are we right or not? Like, can you really tell me she's a candidate of substance who's uniquely, charismatically going to lead this country? Like, come on.
Right. Right. I think it was Putin who said, I've met 5 United States presidents, and each time I meet them for the first time, they're lively, energetic, and excited about all the things that they're going to do. And then it's like they realize shortly after that they're not going to be able to do anything. It was a very interesting interview he did about it. It was, I think it might even been prior to the invasion and prior to COVID.
Interesting.
But yeah, he met Clinton before he was president of Russia. He met Bush. He met Obama. He met Trump. I don't know if he met Biden though. He might not have. Well, no, he might have. He might have met him before. But basically, yeah, it's like Trump is the only president that I can think of, and certainly my lifetime, but maybe even since JFK, that wasn't an empty suit for the machine.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. You can argue he may not have drained the swamp to the degree he had promised, and not ended the wars we had hoped he would. But it's obvious that the establishment opposes him, and he's been able to ruffle feathers and shake things up. Otherwise, they wouldn't be trying to get rid of him.
And he didn't get to do the things he wanted to do for some very simple reasons. He had the majority to build the wall in the first 2 years of his presidency. Yeah. But like half of the Republicans believe that he was a Russian agent, including the Speaker of the House. So, he couldn't even get the wall built the correct way. And then when it came to repealing Obamacare, it was the same thing. Half of the Republicans literally thought he was a Russian asset. Or at least enough of the Republicans that were in the House of Representatives were like, we need to see this investigation through, before we do anything serious.
Can you imagine how much time, money, and resources were wasted on the whole RussiaGate hoax? I mean, that's what I'm talking about. I used to know
how much it was. It was. I can't remember what it was, but it was a substantial amount that was spent on the Mueller report, and all of that, and it was just all pointless. But anyways, yeah, we've certainly we can say in the future, perhaps a person like Trump we wouldn't want to have president, and maybe this is like a stepping forward into electing people who were not career politicians. Hopefully next time around we'll be voting in someone like Vivek Ramaswamy, or someone who, was in politics but then was kicked out, like Tulsi Gabbard, or someone of that nature. But we have a lot of work to do, and our country has a lot of problems right now. And one party is like, no, there's no problems. Everything's fine. We're all fine. There's nothing wrong. And then there's the other side. We're like, we are $35 trillion in debt. Both sides are guilty of it. We have 20 million illegals or more. We have an energy crisis that is making the middle class shrink very, very quickly. We have a whole generation, the millennials and Gen Z, who have no prospects in their future. The other party is, giving immigrants hotel rooms, plane tickets, bus tickets, and cell phones. And the other party is like, hey, we have two generations who can't afford a house. Right. We have two generations that aren't producing babies because they can't afford it.
Yep.
So it's like, to me, it's a very clear vote. Very
clear.
Yeah. Sorry. But
Trump versus the machine.
Before we go, I did want to kind of circle back again to the rally, because it was so life changing. It was energizing. It was kind of like what people like you and I need to keep the fight going, and talked about food, talked about the food that we're feeding our children, talked about the pharmaceutical industry and what they've done, and what doctors have done to Americans, what the insurance companies have done to Americans. And I don't know if you want to start with the podcast with Casey and Callie Means, or if you want to go to the presentation that they did at the Rescue the Republic rally when they were talking about Doritos and
let's play that clip real quick.
Our government is letting U.S. food companies get away with serving American citizens harmful ingredients that are banned or heavily regulated in other countries. Even worse, American food companies are selling the same product overseas without these chemicals, but choose to serve us the most toxic version. One set of ingredients over there and another one here. Let me give you some examples. This is McDonald's French fries from the United States. It has 11 ingredients, but in the UK, there's only 4, and salt is optional. This one has an ingredient called dimethylpolysiloxane, an ingredient that can be preserved with formaldehyde, a neurotoxin, and just happens to be the first ingredient in silly putty. This is United States Fanta right here. It's made with high fructose corn syrup, artificial dye, yellow 6, red 40, and sodium benzenate. In the UK, they have real orange juice inside, and it's colored with carrots and pumpkin. In Skittles, there's 10 different artificial dyes here in the United States, plus titanium dioxide, an ingredient that's banned in Europe because it causes DNA damage. Gatorade, here in the United States, uses red 40 and caramel color. In Germany, they use carrots and sweet potatoes to color their Gatorade. M&M's has 10 artificial dyes made from petroleum linked to hyperactivity in children here in the United States, and in the UK, they only use 1. And let's talk about Doritos. Doritos, this bag of Doritos from the United States has MSG and artificial food dye, but in the UK, it doesn't. And America's favorite cookie, Oreo's birthday cake, has 4 different artificial food dyes, and in Europe, they use beets, spirulina, and turmeric. And worst of all, right over the border, this box of Fruit Loops in Canada is naturally colored with carrot juice, blueberry juice, and watermelon juice. This American version has 4 different artificial dyes made from petroleum and the preservative BHT, which is an endocrine disrupting chemical linked to cancer. I want Americans to be treated the same way as citizens in other countries by our own American companies.
So yeah, that was Vani Hari from the Rescue the Republic rally, and you know, you heard her talking about how the ingredients are different in other countries. They were using natural food dyes instead of these chemical concoctions.
Yeah, which are actually inflammatory to your body.
Right.
And are toxins to your body that your body is fighting off constantly. It's absolutely crazy that there's a line on the map between Canada and the USA, and Fruit Loops are colored in America by red and yellow dyes that are just full of chemicals, carcinogens, inflammatory chemicals that like just make you inflamed, make your cells inflamed. And in Canada, they use beet juice, carrot juice, and all this other normal things that you'd use. And I went further. I researched this a little bit further. I saw there's a video on YouTube, and it's a committee meeting in the House of Representatives, and someone was showing like, this is a bag of the American Fruit Loops, and you know the colors are super bright, and you know very clearly that's Fruit Loops, and then it says this is Canadian Fruit Loops, and the color really wasn't there. Like there wasn't much change in the color,
right?
And it's all marketing. It's all it is. young kids. If you ever wondered why in the cereal aisle all the kid stuff is about a foot lower than you would want it to be as the shopper, as the adult shopping, it's because they put the colorful, the crazy colorful, the beautiful candy kind of cereal at eye level for children. And then they put the healthier ones on the very bottom and on the very top. So the first thing the kids see is all these crazy colors and eye-popping colors, and they're like, "Ooh, I want to eat that." And that's the food that is full of chemicals and is turning our children into obese, giving our children chronic diseases, giving them behavioral issues, giving them stomach issues, immune system issues, and it's all due to the food we eat. And there's these two podcasts. One was Joe Rogan, and it was episode 2210, and it was Callie and Casey Means, who the brother was basically a food lobbyist for the food companies in DC, and Kelly was a doctor, and she quit her practice. She quit her practice because she was so frustrated that all she was doing was band-aiding people's symptoms and not getting to the root cause. And she later found out that the root cause, her and her brother basically teamed up and was like, the root cause is the food that we're buying, the food that we're eating. So it was very interesting. Like I said, it was a Rogan episode 2210, and it was a Tucker episode, and it was titled Callie and Casey Means. Both are on Spotify. They're free. Extremely eye-opening, terrifying in a lot of ways. But
that's right. But Callie,
is it Callie? No, excuse me.
Yeah,
Callie,
that's okay.
Sorry. But having 4 children of my own, so I've been on my own food journey for the last year. I was having symptoms of being pre-diabetic, and it was very scary. The symptoms were pretty uncomfortable, and I was I'm on the road a lot, so I go to a lot of gas stations. I was eating chips and McDonald's and all this junk, but I'd always ate it before. And then I started having these crazy symptoms, and I couldn't figure out why they weren't going away for about 6 months. And then I realized that I was pre-diabetic, and I was like, well, what causes diabetes? And that's, sugar intake. And so I just started cutting out carbs, hard. And it's been life-changing. I've lost 40 pounds, about 40 pounds. My symptoms have went away. I feel so much better. And I basically just cut out anything with white flour, anything with sugar, sodas, cut out all that stuff. And it's been a drastic change. Now, these guys, it's Callie, you said?
Callie and Casey, yep.
Callie and Casey, they took it to a whole other level where they're like, look, they're not just targeting you as an adult, they're targeting children. And I have 4 children at home. And I was just like, I just told my wife, I'm just like, we can't do this. Some of our kids were having behavioral issues. And I was basically equating some of their behavior, I think, was actually coming from the food that we were eating. So we don't eat bread as a family. We really don't eat cereal. We went camping, and we went camping recently, and my wife was like, I'm just going to get them fun cereal because we're camping. It's just a few days. And I was like, it's okay, honey. But even those few days, they were eating them, and I don't know, maybe I'm just crazy, but they seemed like they were acting different than what they were prior. So I know for a fact that the food you eat is going to impact you.
Absolutely.
It's going to impact us more than what we even dared realize. So I would encourage all of you to listen to either one of those or both of those podcasts, and it's going to change your life. It really, really is going to change your life, and it's going to make you, when you go into a grocery store, you're just going to feel like you're surrounded by poison, because that's what it is. And all those complexes that we were mentioning that rest of the public were against, the big pharma, the most, and I think RFK has said this too recently, the most profitable thing in the country right now is a sick child.
Yes.
There's been several videos on YouTube talking about how they're basically approving Ozempic for children as young as 6 years old. Ozempic is about $1,600 a week for a 6-year-old child. For that same amount of money, a week, and you could take that money instead of for that Ozempic. You could take that money and buy your kids basically first-class healthy food for that amount.
Mm-hmm.
Now that brother and sister have said in this podcast that there is nowhere in our insurance code that a doctor can't prescribe and the insurance can pay for food as a prescription. So just like how when you go to the doctor, they prescribe you a medication, a doctor also can, at least by the codes and by laws, they can prescribe you food, and the insurance would have to give you the money to go buy that food for your child. Now they don't want us to know that, but imagine instead of this disgusting world where we're feeding our children garbage to where they need a drug like Ozempic to lose weight at the age of 6. Imagine a world where, food was clean and food was healthy for children consumption, and they wouldn't need a pharmaceutical drug at the age of 6. I think knowledge is power, and I think every parent should listen to both those podcasts and let their eyes be opened to what they're doing to our kids at super young ages and trying to get them to be basically clients of big pharma for the rest of their lives.
Exactly. Yeah. And I had a couple of thoughts while you were saying all that. I mean, how much money can be saved on a national scale if we were keeping ourselves healthy up front with our diet instead of allowing ourselves to be sick and then spending all this money on healthcare. The primary point is why are we getting sick to begin with? And consumption is kind of what drives the market, like people's buying habits, right? But what drives people's buying habits is largely based on the information they're receiving. So again, that ties back to the free speech and censorship. Like this is the point is this is the information that the medical industrial complex and big pharma do not want you to know. They don't want you to know how to be healthy on your own through diet, because like you said, it's more profitable for you to be sick. So to me, this is the heart of what MAHA, make America healthy again. It's kind of a natural marriage with Make America Great Again, because some of us maybe were already red-pilled about the media and the propaganda, but Trump did wake up a lot of people about fake news and about how the media is lying to you. And I think it's wonderful. It's maybe the best thing he did, at least in his first 4 years. And my point is that we need to have everyone skeptical of media, and we need to have everyone getting the correct information that's going to help them be healthier.
Right.
You know what I'm
Absolutely.
saying? Yeah.
Absolutely. And also, I'm just going to piggyback to what you were saying about the media. America is one of 2 nations in the world that big pharma can put advertisements on TV for. The other country is New Zealand. So the idea that our media can basically pay the big pharma can pay media millions and I think even billions of dollars in advertising, and the media is then incentivized to just basically stay quiet about the obesity epidemic and the food epidemic of our children and of adults. You know, we are a first world country, and we have the highest obesity rate in the world, and no one talks about it.
Yeah.
Instead, there's body positivity. You know, we're making it. We're trying to tell people that fat is beautiful. Now, I'm an overweight man. I wouldn't obviously deny the idea that being fat is healthy, or being fat is beautiful, or being fat is okay. You know, that's a cruel thing for someone to say to someone who needs help. And I'll admit that I need help, and I'm trying. I'm doing the best that I can with the amount of time that I have and the amount of resources that I have. But we are like walking people down a path of early death. We're walking people down a path of chronic disease for the rest of their lives, diabetes for the rest of their lives, and then eventually Alzheimer's down the road. And this whole time, the media is quiet about it. The people who actually know about it are quiet. And we're going to go back again to free speech. Free speech, you know, we have to have it. And one party thinks free speech is important for debate, and then the other one thinks it's dangerous. And that, like what John Kerry said, I think it was a day or two ago. John Kerry said in a press conference that the First Amendment is an obstacle for us because we can't hammer down malinformation or misinformation. Absolutely insane. You know, that we have someone who ran for president before on the Democrat ticket, may I remind everyone, talking about how the First Amendment is an obstacle.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure I've heard that Tim Walz guy say something pretty similar about hammering down on misinformation. And I've seen Elon Musk warn on Twitter, like, hey, look, X is in danger of being shut down if Harris wins this election. I don't know if that's fear mongering on his part or it's the real deal, but they've given us reason to worry about it, you know. So let's don't let them win the election. I don't want to find out if they're bluffing.
Absolutely. And to the people who are thinking about voting third party because they don't like either option, it's true that, you know, Republicans have done bad things. But let's just get on board and realize that, you know, the Democrats deserve to lose. Like Dave Smith has said this over and over again. The Democrats deserve to lose. Yep. They destroyed people's lives during COVID, and to be fair, so did Republican governors in some states.
Sure,
but it was way worse. It was way worse in Democrat states.
Oh yeah, not one Democrat at any level of government stood against those mandates.
Yeah, so the election is what, 25 days away, 26 days away, something like that. So I hope we can get another podcast or two in before the election. But you guys, just remember that free speech is something that we gotta always fight for. We always gotta stand up for, and we need it right now more than ever because we need to talk to the other side daily. I know it's uncomfortable. I know that it sometimes means that feelings are hurt and people will stop talking to you for a while. But we gotta talk. Both sides have to talk. I refuse to believe that just because someone's voting for Kamala Harris means they're a bad person. I don't think that. I don't think that one bit. I think the party itself is horrible, and I think a lot of the people who are elected are horrible. But we're all Americans, and we all want to see America thrive. And information is power, and the information that we talked about today, and talking about free speech. And free information is free speech. So yeah, I don't know if you want to close with anything else, but I think I've said my piece for this episode. Probably talked too
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, no, I love what you said about third parties. I mean, I hope that does happen in the future. I just hope the Democrats lose now because of the reasons we've talked about.
Where is Dick Cheney today? Dick Cheney is standing proudly with Kamala Harris, who has said that she is proud and honored to have his endorsement and his support. Now, for the young ones who may not remember, Dick Cheney was the architect of the entire disaster that has been created with all of the problems that we're seeing play out in the Middle East today and other parts of the world. He was the architect of the lie about the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. He was the architect behind the regime change war and the destabilization in Iraq that caused such chaos and loss of life and destruction that created the fertile ground for the rise of ISIS. That is the Dick Cheney who Kamala Harris is honored to have his support. So for those of you who may be at home watching, or for those of you who have friends who are still not quite sure who to vote for in this election, I'll make it very simple. A vote for Kamala Harris is a vote for Dick Cheney. A vote for Kamala Harris is a vote for the neocon warmongers. A vote for Kamala Harris is a vote for the military-industrial complex. A vote for Kamala Harris is a vote for nuclear war.
Absolutely. We got to rescue the Republic.
Thanks, everyone, for listening.
If you would like to be a guest on Lancast or contact us for any reason, send an email to lancastAmericaFirst@gmail.com. That's Lancast with 2 C's, AmericaFirst@gmail.com. Thank you.